Today we're back in the forest here of northern Arizona with these stunning pine trees with the rich red-orange bark. It's going to be a fantastic day of photography, but we're going to do things with a slight twist. We're going to challenge ourselves today by only using the Sigma 14 to 24 millimeter wide-angle lens to see how versatile this lens can be and what kind of great shots we can get with it. Today I'm in the woodlands with the sole intention of boosting my creativity and simplifying the gear that I bring on photography trips. How I'm going to do that today is I'm only bringing one lens, the 14 to 24 millimeter. Let's get to exploring around these beautiful woodlands and find some great images to capture. Incredible. The first composition I have set up here is this beautiful like chaos meets magic. A dead and down tree here has fallen on top of the stump of a former dead tree, and it has split it to where it has this nice triangular pattern. It's fantastic. Let's explore this image a little further. You'll notice I'm actually quite close to my subject, and that's because I have this really wide angle lens in this 14 to 24 Sigma variety. Now, what that means is I can really accentuate the foreground subjects like this big dead log broken over the stump with this lovely triangle shape. So what I have is the triangle shape is going to be framed up center in the frame, and then I have these beautiful tall red pine trees, and they make for a great frame on either side of that triangle shape to really kind of show the scene and show how dynamic this forest is. Let me show you the settings I'm working with. F11, ISO 100, 1/60th of a second shutter speed, and with the Sigma lens, I have it dialed in at 14 millimeters to really capture this scene. The next composition I've found here in the forest of northern Arizona is this massive, massive red trunk pine tree that has an incredible story to tell. If you're not familiar, these trees are so tall, they often get struck by lightning. And that is the case with this tree. You can see the spiral line coming down the bark of the tree. That's where the lightning path traveled as it entered the ground. This tree is now scarred and has an incredible photo, I think, for us to take today. So I have my settings dialed in, F11, ISO 100, and again, 1/60th of a second, same exact settings from our previous shot because the conditions here, the lighting has not changed. However, I am using this lens at about 22 millimeters, a slightly wider view, because I want to focus on the subject itself, this massive tree, but I also want to get a little bit of the background of the forest to really capture this entire scene. Here's that image now. This day is going incredibly well. The creativity seems to be flowing. I hope you're getting inspired to get out into the local areas around where you live to take some photographs. If you are, make sure you hit that subscribe button. Next up, let's look at some interesting textures and patterns in woodlands. Look how these trees have incredible texture within their bark. It's almost flaky like, with the beautiful color palette going from kind of a black almost to a reddish color. It reminds me of a tiger's skin. What do you think? The last image today is probably the most unusual tree I have ever seen. Look at this tree just behind me. It has a kind of a normal trunk for trees of this size, but as it goes higher and higher, it gets wider and wider, turning into 5 or 6 different trees at the top. It's like a Medusa almost, like full of snakes. So incredible. It also has this incredible pattern along it, not quite those stripes that if you will, of the bark on a normal tree. It almost has these horizontal gashes as well. So this image is going to be a little bit more challenging because it is such a giant tree. But with this ultra wide angle lens, I'm going to use it at the 14mm setting. And I've got the camera angled up quite a bit because I want to get the entire tree. It's so unique, I've got to get it all. So with that 14mm, I'm going to do a bracketed exposure. I'm going to do a -1 exposure for the sky because it's quite backlit. I'm going to do a normal exposure for the surrounding forest. And then finally, I'll do a +1 exposure to get the details of the tree and the trunk all nice and bright. For the settings of this image, I'll be using f11, the various shutter speeds I just mentioned, and ISO 100, later merging these in Lightroom. Here's the final image. And yes, again, this is the photo of the day. What an incredible day today. Shooting just with one lens really did open up my eyes for some new creative compositions. I hope you've learned something as well during this video. If you have, make sure you give it a thumbs up and put a comment below and tell me which photo you like the most. Otherwise, I'll see you in that next adventure.